Hi, I'm Brant Menswar, and welcome to my show, Just a Moment. As a former world touring musician turned keynote speaker and author, I've experienced my share of life-altering moments that have both broken me and propelled me forward. How you leverage those moments or push through them will define your destiny. Each week on my show, I'll provide tools on how to maximize those moments, as well as interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and athletes on how the power of a single moment changed their life. Join me to learn how to change what's possible for your life. It'll take just a moment. Today's guest is the formidable, forward-thinking female founder of ThinkLab, Amanda Schneider. If you're in need of creative solutions and mind-blowing market research, she's the one to talk to. However, her path to success in TED Talk stardom wasn't always an answer that was easy for her to find. This is her story.
Hi, I'm Amanda Schneider, and this is my moment. I joke that I grew up in a vertical strip across the U.S. I was born in Little Falls, Minnesota. When I was about 3 years old, I moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and mostly settled in Galesburg, Illinois. I come from a family of engineers. Even as we were looking at colleges, until the last minute, I was thinking, I guess I'll just go into engineering because I don't really know what else I want to do. My dad worked for Maytag at the time. I've always kind of had a natural ability to draw. So he said, why don't you come in to work with me? We are working with an industrial designer from a consultancy designing a door handle for the refrigerator. This woman, Anne-Marie Conrado, was from Insight Studios. And I still don't know to this day if she knows the impact that she had on me, but she talked about how she loved her job so much because every day was a new adventure. One day she's designing a baby's bath seat, so she has to observe a mother bathing her child. Another day she's designing a scuba mask, so she's got to take scuba lessons. And I just thought that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I ended up going to University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, majoring in industrial design. When I got into it later in my career, I realized that what I really loved was not product design. What I loved was the research side of it. In college, I was the most business-minded creative in the room. Later realized I'm often the most creative business mind in the room in certain circles, but I tried starting my sophomore year of college to get a job fair off the ground. At University of Illinois, they have a huge job fair for the engineering school, and they would have 500 companies descend on the university, like really looking for the next up-and-coming talent. The design school, we did not have that. So I tried my sophomore year to get a job fair off the ground, kind of modeling after what I saw from the engineering fair, and I failed. My junior year, I tried again and I failed. Come my senior year, I was like, come hell or high water, like I'm gonna get this damn thing off the ground. And so my professor literally gave me a key to his office so that I could go in and use the dial phone. Some of the kids listening are probably not gonna know what that was, but I literally cold called companies around the Midwest, inviting them to come to our job fair. I also sent out 250 postcards to the IDSA Midwest chapter. And out of those 250, one postcard was answered. It was a gentleman named Craig Schultz, who ran the industrial design department for a furniture company called Allsteel. And he was one of 12 companies to come to that first year, and he pretty much hired me on the spot. So that is where I got started. It's also a little bit of a legacy that I left behind, where I graduated 23 years ago now. That job fair still happens today.
Though Amanda's college years lent themselves to a lasting legacy, her professional life post-graduation was quick to hit pitfalls.
I was hired into the office furniture industry, which I feel like is a world that many people don't even know exists. And if you think back to that time, that is when the dot bomb happened. So a lot of tech companies went under, and you can imagine it was not a great time to be selling office furniture because there wasn't a lot of businesses buying. So I'll start with the story of my first day on the job. I had a broken foot, so I couldn't drive. This was in Muscatine, Iowa, pre-Uber days. There was no sidewalks to even crutch to work. So I called, we'll call her Sarah, who agreed to give me a ride to work my first day. So Sarah picks me up. We park in the employee entrance. Sarah walks on in, and our boss says to me, Amanda, we're going to be laying Sarah off today. She'll have her things out by 11:45 and you can move your things in. That furniture company went from just a really intense period of change. So they had full internal design teams that, were hired quickly when things were kind of escalating leading up to that dot bomb. So about a year in, it was down to me and the gentleman who had hired me, Craig Schultz, and that same boss that greeted me at the door sat me down and said, okay, Amanda, you seem to have an aptitude for marketing, and you could either go into marketing or you could stay in design. And I'm looking at what started with about 12 designers. A year later was down to 2 of us. And marketers who had been in charge of all this rebranding that was happening, that were all getting promoted. I'm like, designers get fired, marketers get promoted. Like, I'll do that. They paid for me to go back to school and get my MBA. I helped Allsteel start up their first ever market research team, which at that time really shaped a lot of my career moving forward.
With her career locked down, Amanda decided to start a family. But that decision, she found, came at a cost.
I had had my first son and was really just struggling with the transition into motherhood. I found that I was literally waking him up to rush him to daycare, and then rushing to work to get my work done, and then rushing home only to pick him up, feed him dinner, and put him to bed. I felt like, who invented this system where all my money is going to pay for his daycare, and all of my time, I literally am away from him. This world is designed so I'm away from him every waking hour that he has. I was loving working, I was loving my job, but really struggling with being a mother and balancing a career when the rules of the world seemed to be built around people that didn't have the home responsibilities. When I had my second son, all of a sudden we called the daycare, and even with sibling priority, he was not going to have a spot until he was about 7 months old. We had called the daycare before we even told our parents, like literally the day we took the pregnancy test. So it just felt like this equation that was impossible. I remember one of the last straws. I was at the park with my 2.5-year-old. I was still pregnant with my second son, and just really trying to wind down from a work day, spend a little bit of time with him. And I look down and he says, "Mommy, look at this." And he was holding a syringe, like some drug paraphernalia that someone had dropped at this park, because we were living in kind of a up and coming area, and I thought, oh my God, we got to get out of here. I can't afford to live here. I can't afford to live like this. Something's got to give. At the same time, my husband is with me and going through kind of this crisis of how are we going to make this work? We're really trying to have a marriage that flourishes, have careers that flourish. And so he started interviewing for jobs that would take us to areas with lower costs of living. We ended up deciding to move to suburban Atlanta. So at the time, I was working for a company that no longer exists. It was called Izzy Plus, another furniture company that was founded and run by an amazing industrial designer, a man named Chuck Saylor. I was working in a sales capacity, but doing a lot of these special market research projects on the side, because that's always where my passion has been. And I felt a little bit like teacher's pet. Right? Because I had a real connection with Chuck. He was a phenomenal mentor to me. And so I told him very early on that I was pregnant with my second son, and I told him that we were moving to Atlanta. He said something that still surprises me to this day. He said, "Amanda, we don't have a job for you in Atlanta, but we'll hire you as a consultant." And I really only heard the first half of that sentence. It took me, no lie, probably 2 months to hear the second half of that sentence that he said in that moment that I just didn't hear, which was, "But we'll hire you as a consultant." And so that was a real turning point for me, where I decided to really put my hat in the ring for this consulting world.
Amanda's bold career change was a risk that ultimately paid off. She had discovered a work-life balance that simultaneously satisfied her desire to be there for her family and her professional goals. Next, she wanted to share it with others.
I worked a trade show that happens every year in Chicago, and I was able to land 2 clients that first year. 2 turned into 3 that second year. 3 turned into 14 the following year, which also included a third son and a move back to Chicago from Atlanta. Business just exploded. With 14 clients, it was more than I could handle at that time. And so I started reaching out to other moms that were very, very talented, that had hit similar moments in their life and their career. My pitch to them was, there will be times when we have more money, and there'll be times when you have more time with your family. And so this group of powerful women and we incorporated officially in 2015. We effectively doubled our revenue year over year, every year, until ultimately we were discovered by a division of Interior Design magazine in 2017 that led to our acquisition in 2018. We now run the research division of Sandow that is called Think Lab. That moment that felt really horrible at that time turned into a really beautiful story that I hope inspires a lot of other working moms that kind of have had this same struggle that I did. You think of a corporate job as job security. I remember people asking me like, well, aren't you worried? And I definitely was in the beginning. It's definitely a leap of faith. And I felt like the little bird kind of pushed out of the nest unwillingly. But the truth is, and my answer to that by the end of that consulting journey was, you've got one boss. I have 19. And if one of those 19 bosses fire me, I've got 18 others that love what I'm doing. That is more job security than I would ever have in the corporate world. It just really reframed a lot of things for me that really ended up becoming a passion for me in a way that I could share what's possible if we don't just think we have to follow the traditional path. A lot of people think that you have to have this 5-year plan. It's the classic interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the reality of that is, who the fuck knows? The last 5 years since 2020 has taught us anything. There's going to be a lot of curveballs thrown at us. So my internal mantra is really about what's in front of you right now. What have you done? Where are the opportunities? And be on each single one of those like a dog on a bone. How do you build on that as a stepping stool rather than looking at the end where you want to go, because you run a marathon 1 mile at a time?
Amanda, welcome to Just a Moment. I've been waiting for this moment myself for a few months. You and I have been sort of talking, preparing for your TEDx. And first of all, I'm so proud of you for crushing it. These are moments that don't arise too often for people. You've earned that moment, as you will earn many more in the future. But I think it's amazing that you seized that opportunity. As we hear and have just heard your moment, it makes sense why not only you said yes, but you grabbed the bull by the horns and wrestled it to the ground and stuck that dagger through its heart. So I appreciate you doing that. We're going to talk about a moment now that you wish you could get back. And we, as we talked before, we started recording this is a hard exercise for some people. As if you're somebody who is always looking forward and you're trying to move to that next thing, sometimes we bury moments that we forget about, or we don't want to think through them again because they were difficult, and so we just focus on that moving forward. But as we learned a bit in your moment, you are a precrastinator. So this has got to be a few things that, and maybe it's just you wish you weren't a precrastinator. Maybe that's the moment. But tell us about that moment you wish you could get back.
If I had to pick a moment, I couldn't. So my moment would be a lot of these little moments that I just wish I could get back. They say depression is being stuck in the past, anxiety is being stuck in the future, and both of them rob you of the present. And if I had one wish for my life, it's that I could feel this sense of calm to know that everything was going to work out and I didn't need to worry so much, that there's not a reason to get nervous. There's not a reason to overthink it. I wish that I could have learned sooner how to enjoy every moment that I'm in, because it all works out, not always the way you imagine it will. And there's definitely been highs and lows and hard moments, and those are going to be true for anyone's life. But I wish I had not worried so much.
I'm curious, like, what do you literally do to make sure that you don't find yourself drifting one way or the other?
So I have a bucket list and I have a fuck it list. This is an active practice that I have implemented myself to just say, okay, the bucket list is what are the things that I still want to do? And my fuck it list is, a lot of other things that probably wouldn't make sense to anyone else. They probably would seem really small and insignificant to someone else, but I think they're especially significant to me. I think of back when I was 19 years old, that first job in Muscatine, Iowa, and I really wanted to buy a Jeep Wrangler. And every time I'm driving my minivan and parked in front of the local high school and all these kids are driving Jeeps, I'm like, why don't I just do it? I bought a Jeep Wrangler last fall, which was like my final, I'm finally doing it. So my bucket list are these little things that just bring me joy. These little things that I've always wanted to do and are about Amanda as a human and as a person, not as Amanda, the powerhouse at work, not as Amanda, the doing her best to be a decent mom every day, that are just about me. I think that that has been really fulfilling to kind of reclaim that joy and make sure that I'm even examples to other women in my circles about how to make sure that you're maintaining what matters to you as a human outside of your family, outside of your job. I think it's very easy as a female in today's era where we have all of these new rights, we can work, we can vote, but a lot of these responsibilities and the weight of being a woman in society today have not come off our plate. We still are the default parent. We still carry the mental load of making sure that everything is taken care of. And I have a very supportive husband who's super involved and an amazing dad. So this is not a shot at him. It's just a societal thing that is still different for women than men. If you read the statistics about the inordinate amount of housework that women do, not true for me. My husband is the neat one, so don't be fooled there. He would be very upset if I suggested otherwise. But if you look at some of these, I think it's very easy for women to lose themselves in the busyness of being a mom and being a worker.
I love it. I love it. A couple of things really stand out to me in what you just said. Sometimes when we have big goals, they get overwhelming and they seem almost too big to be supported by one person. Many of us just either push them aside or give up because they seem a little too daunting. I love that by sort of separating things into these two buckets, you're sort of creating moments. And this is really what this podcast is about, is understanding that sometimes it's just a moment that moves you towards that big goal, that moves you towards accomplishing that thing you've always wanted to have. And when you break things down into moments, they aren't as overwhelming as trying to, eat an elephant in one bite, right?
I don't know if you've heard, there's an amazing article out there about female elephants. We are a very me society, but I also think it can be about moments and looking for moments where you can support other. For me, it's often women, but how do you support others? How do you become one of these moments for them? And so this article that's out there is about women elephants and what all humans can learn about female elephants. And they call it the circle. So when a female elephant has a baby, the mothers all gather around her and form a circle literally with their backs to her while she gives birth to her baby. And then they trumpet sound of joy, to celebrate with her when that baby is born. In contrast, when a mother is struggling, when a female elephant is struggling, what these elephants do is they form that circle again and they kick up dust to mask the pheromones that an elephant releases when they're in stress. There's a line in there that says something like, sometimes we're the elephant in the middle that needs a little bit of support. Other times we're the elephant in the circle that's kicking up dust in fierce love to protect one of our own. I get emotional every time I talk about this. Oof. And I think that, as we look at the struggles that we have, to really not look at what's your bucket list and what's your moment to, really regain you, but also how do you be that elephant kicking up dust in fierce love for one of these other women, one of your own, another man, another community member. As we tell our success stories on podcasts like this, I think that that's a really important thing to remember, is that we all cannot do it on our own. And all these happiness studies that talk about what the longest living people that live the happiest life are. It's not about podcasts. It's not about articles. It's not about TEDx talks. It's about the community that they've built. And how do we do that? So how do you not only look for those moments for yourself, but look at how you can influence others?
That's amazing. That's amazing. Listen, I can't thank you enough for being here. I want to know, for everybody that wants to continue to follow you, wants to watch that TEDx talk, wants to be made aware when this book is going to be written and coming out, what's the best way for people to follow along?
Well, I'm a big LinkedIner, so I would encourage you to find me on LinkedIn. I'm Amanda Jean Schneider on LinkedIn. And find me there, connect with me there. You can also follow my company, ThinkLab, on LinkedIn or Instagram, or find our website at thinklab.design, although we're quite industry specific. And the last place I would say to follow me is I have an incredible podcast that I love. It is really my passion. We're in the top 5% of podcasts. It is called Design Nerds Anonymous. So you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. And we're going to continue to not only research the world of interior design, which is what I do, but also in this moment that we're in as a society. I think there's a lot that we're trying to influence with that podcast and with our message out to the world about the future of work and how that's going to influence every area of how we live, work, play, heal, everything else. So I think there's a lot in there that will be applicable to all of your listeners as well.
100%. Amanda, I adore and respect you, and I just can't thank you enough for being on Just a Moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Just a Moment. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and tell a friend or two about it to help spread the word so everyone can find a moment that inspires them. Don't forget to leave us a review and check us out on the web at justamomentpodcast.com. Just a Moment is produced by Natalie Von Rose and Brant Menswar. For more inspiring shows like this, visit surroundpodcasts.com.